From the outside, our life looked perfect, our sprawling estate gleaming under the sun, the gardens meticulously trimmed, and the laughter of our friends filling the grand hall during week-end gatherings. I had always thought of our marriage as unshakable. My husband, Daniel, was charming, impeccably dressed, and always knew the right words to say. Everyone admired him, and I had trusted him with my heart and my fortune. But perfection is a fragile illusion. It began subtly, almost imperceptibly. Daniel started coming home late, claiming work demands, yet I noticed the faint smell of expensive cologne, one I hadn't gifted him, on his cuffs. Phone calls that he once shared with me became secretive whispers, and his eyes, once open and warm, now flickered with a guarded caution. I tried to ignore it, telling myself I was being paranoid, that I was imagining shadows in a life that had always been so bright. Meanwhile, Maria, our housekeeper of over a decade, remained a constant. She was more than staff, she was family. She knew my moods, my routines, the way I liked the roses trimmed, the silver polished. Her laughter could fill a room, her presence a calming anchor. I had often thought that without her, this house, this life, would feel hollow. Then came the night that shattered everything. I had returned from a charity gala, the glittering city lights reflecting in my tired eyes, and found Daniel pacing the grand hallway, his expression carefully controlled. Before I could ask why he looked so tense, he pointed a finger at Maria, who was quietly dusting the living room. "She's been stealing from us," he said, his voice firm, almost triumphant. "I've found items missing, jewelry, cash. I can't believe you trusted her all these years." I froze. My heart hammered against my chest. Maria turned to me, her eyes wide with disbelief, hurt flashing across her face. "No, I would never," she began, but Daniel cut her off with a wave of his hand. "I can't take chances anymore. I have to protect our home. I'm sorry, but you've left me no choice," he said, as if the words themselves were meant to seal her fate. My mind spun. I wanted to scream, to protest, to hug Maria and tell her she was wrongfully accused. But the accusation hung in the air, suffocating me. Part of me doubted myself. Could I have overlooked something? Was she capable of betrayal? The seed of doubt Daniel had planted started to grow, gnawing at the edges of my trust. Maria's eyes, however, didn't waver in their quiet dignity. "You know, I've never taken anything that wasn't mine," she said softly. Her voice trembled, but her stance was unbroken. It was that courage, that unwavering honesty, that made my stomach twist with shame. As the night dragged on, Daniel excused himself, leaving us alone. I turned to Maria, guilt and confusion choking me. "I'm so sorry," I whispered. "I should have known better." She nodded, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Some betrayals are hidden, not in the people you trust, but in the ones who wear the mask of love." I didn't understand her words fully then, but later, in the silence of my bedroom, I would. Because that night, as I lay awake, the gleam of the chandelier mocking me, I realized that the perfect life Daniel and I had built together might not have been mine to protect after all. Something darker was at work, something hidden beneath the charm and the polite smiles, a secret that threatened to destroy everything I held dear. And in that moment, a quiet resolve began to form in me. If my husband had orchestrated this false accusation, I would uncover the truth. And when I did, I would ensure that the betrayal, the lies, and the theft of trust were met with justice. The housekeeper might have been innocent, but someone in that house was hiding a much more dangerous secret. The following days were unbearable. Daniel moved through the house with an air of smug control, speaking to me in tones that dripped with feigned concern, as if he were the victim of some grand conspiracy. I, meanwhile, felt hollow. Every glance at Maria reminded me of her pain, her quiet dignity, and the injustice that had been thrust upon her. And yet, something in Daniel's eyes, something cold, Calculating kept gnawing at the edges of my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that the accusation was only the beginning. I started noticing things I had overlooked before: financial statements tucked casually in the drawer, investment notifications that didn't match my own records, documents signed with my name but without my knowledge. The pieces didn't make sense at first. I tried to rationalize, to convince myself it was nothing. But deep down I knew Daniel's charming smile hid more than infidelity or arrogance. There was intent, an insidious plan weaving quietly beneath the surface of our perfect home. One evening, after pretending to be asleep while Daniel went out for a late meeting, I began to dig. I went through the study, cautiously rifling through folders he thought I'd never touch. My hands trembled as I pulled out statements showing large transfers, accounts I didn't know existed, and contracts changing the ownership of properties I had always believed were mine. Each document burned in my hands like fire. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Daniel wasn't just scheming. He was trying to take everything: my fortune, my home, my life of independence, and wrap it all in lies so carefully constructed that no one would suspect him. Anger flared, mingled with the raw sting of betrayal. I had loved this man, trusted him, shared my dreams, my fears, even my most private moments with him. And now it seemed he had weaponized that love against me. Maria noticed my growing distance. One evening, she found me alone in the kitchen, staring blankly at a ledger, my hands shaking. She didn't ask questions. Instead, she placed a gentle hand on my shoulder, grounding me. "You see it, don't you?" she asked quietly. I flinched, startled. "See what?" "The truth. The man you trusted, he's not what you think. And the accusation against me, it was never about theft. It was about control." Her words, though simple, cut deeper than any confrontation could. The betrayal wasn't just of property, it was of trust, love, and loyalty. I had been blind, and it was terrifying how easily someone could manipulate perception, twist reality, and plant doubt in your heart. That night, I lay awake thinking about what Maria had said. The tears came quietly, hot and bitter. I mourned not only the betrayal, but also the naivety that had allowed it. But somewhere between the heartbreak and the fury, a spark began to grow. A quiet, dangerous resolve. I would not let Daniel's manipulation go unchecked. He had underestimated me, and he would pay for the way he had treated Maria, for the way he had tried to destroy me, piece by piece. I started planning quietly, gathering my thoughts, keeping my actions hidden. Every word I spoke to Daniel had to be measured, every movement calculated. I had to appear weak, naive, devastated, while inside I steeled myself for the battle ahead. Because I realized one undeniable truth: trust, once shattered, can reveal more than pain. It can reveal power. And if I played my cards right, I could turn Daniel's own schemes against him. Maria became my quiet ally, a confidante, and a reminder that loyalty was not a weakness, but a weapon. Together, we began to piece together the extent of his deception, preparing for the moment when his mask of charm would finally crack. The night closed in, heavy with tension, as I stared out at the gardens from my bedroom window. Somewhere out there, Daniel thought he had won. But the game was just beginning, and I had learned the most important lesson. A woman underestimated is a storm waiting to rise. By the time the third week arrived, the anger inside me had shifted. It was no longer raw and burning. It had cooled into something sharper, something precise. The heartbreak still lingered, a bitter reminder of Daniel's betrayal, but it was now accompanied by clarity. I knew I couldn't confront him directly, at least not yet. He thrived on confidence, on the illusion that he was untouchable. If I wanted justice, if I wanted to reclaim what was mine, I would need patience, cunning, and strategy. Maria became my first secret ally. We met in quiet corners of the house, where Daniel's presence couldn't intrude. She shared what she had observed over the years, small inconsistencies in his stories, hidden financial accounts, and subtle manipulations he had used to isolate me from friends and family. Her knowledge paired with her loyalty became the backbone of my plan. I trusted him. I whispered one evening, the candlelight casting shadows across the walls. I loved him, and he used that like it was nothing. Maria placed a comforting hand over mine. That's why he underestimated you. People who love blindly are dangerous when they finally see. Her words ignited something in me. I began to act as though I was still the same naive, betrayed wife Daniel believed me to be. I cried in his presence, showed fear, and let him flaunt his control. But behind the mask, I was meticulous. Every interaction became a chance to observe him, to notice patterns, weaknesses, and opportunities. Every document he thought hidden, every financial maneuver he thought secret, became a potential weapon in my hands. I started leaving subtle clues, tiny hints of my awareness. A comment about checking investments, an offhand remark about missing receipts, questions that seemed innocent but were designed to unsettle him. Daniel, ever arrogant, dismissed them. He didn't suspect that I had begun monitoring his accounts, tracking his communications, and piecing together the full extent of his scheme. One night, I found myself staring at a folder containing property contracts he had attempted to transfer without my consent. I traced the signatures, the dates, the notary stamps. Each piece of evidence became a thread in a tapestry of betrayal that he had woven. And like a spider waiting for the right moment, I planned how to unravel it all. I also began small, subtle tests. I asked Maria to accidentally misplace a bill or a contract in Daniel's path, watching carefully as he reacted. The arrogance that once seemed charming now looked desperate, twitchy, exposed. He didn't know I was observing, taking notes, mentally cataloging every slip. Even more satisfying was watching him underestimate me at every turn. He bragged about his cleverness, about how easily he had manipulated everyone. But in that very arrogance lay the seeds of his downfall. I smiled to myself, imagining the day when that mask would crumble, when the truth would come spilling out like a river that could no longer be dammed. I realized that revenge wouldn't just be about reclaiming money or possessions. It would be about exposing the man he truly was, stripping away the charm and respect he had cultivated, and showing him that betrayal carries consequences far beyond what anyone imagines. And so, with every passing day, I moved quietly, carefully, while Daniel continued to live in his illusion of triumph. I no longer feared him. Instead, I feared only the possibility of being impatient. Patience, I decided, would be my deadliest weapon. By the time the chapter of confrontation arrived, he would not only lose the fortune he coveted, but also the pride and control he had wielded so cruelly. And when that day came, I knew I would stand tall, unmasked, triumphant, not just for me, but for Maria, for the truth, and for the justice that had been denied us for far too long. The house was quiet that night, but in that silence I felt power simmering. The storm was coming, and Daniel would never see it until it was too late. The day arrived quietly, without warning, but the tension in the house was palpable. Daniel, as always, wore his confident mask, unaware that the threads of his carefully constructed world were unraveling. I watched him from across the room, calm and composed, my expression carefully neutral, hiding the storm that had been building inside me for weeks. Maria moved silently beside me, her presence a quiet reassurance. She had endured humiliation, false accusations, and fear, but now she would witness truth triumph. I began subtly, letting Daniel believe he still held control. I asked him questions about investments and property, feigning ignorance, letting him talk at length while carefully recording inconsistencies and contradictions. He boasted, as he always did, of his cleverness, convinced that I was still the naive, obedient wife. Every word he uttered, every smug glance, became evidence. Then came the moment I had been waiting for. With Maria's help, I arranged for a private meeting with our lawyer and the banker managing our accounts. Daniel was invited under the pretense of discussing financial restructuring, a topic he loved to dominate, thinking it showcased his brilliance. I watched as his confident stride faltered slightly when he entered the room, sensing a tension he could not immediately place. The lawyer began methodically presenting evidence. Contracts Daniel had signed to transfer ownership of properties, large withdrawals from accounts that had been hidden from me, emails proving manipulation and deception. Each document was laid bare, undeniable. Daniel's arrogance wavered as the room fell silent, the weight of his own schemes pressing down on him. This is impossible," he stammered, voice tight, attempting to regain composure, but the evidence was relentless. Each lie, each betrayal, each cruel attempt to isolate me and accuse Maria of theft was exposed in front of the very people he had thought were allies. I spoke then, my voice steady, calm, and unflinching. "You accused Maria of theft to distract from your plan to steal everything I built. You manipulated me, lied to everyone, and underestimated the women in this house. But your arrogance blinded you to one fact: the truth always finds a way." Daniel's face contorted in rage, shame, and disbelief all at once. His mask of charm was gone, replaced by the raw exposure of failure. He sputtered, trying to argue, to twist the narrative, but there was no escape. Every word, every action had been documented, and the room bore witness. Maria stepped forward, her voice calm but resolute. "I've served this family faithfully for over 10 years. I trusted her because I trusted you, Daniel. And yet you tried to destroy both of us for your greed. Today, that ends." The weight of her words settled over him like a storm. I felt a quiet triumph, but also a deep, healing sense of relief. Justice wasn't just about money. It was about integrity, truth, and vindication. The lawyer confirmed that the contracts Daniel had attempted to manipulate were nullified. The banks reversed unauthorized transfers, securing my fortune. Friends and staff, who had been subtly informed beforehand, witnessed his downfall, and the humiliation in his eyes was a sight I would never forget. As Daniel was escorted from the house itself seemed to breathe in relief. The grand hall, the gardens, even the chandeliers, symbols of the life we had built together, stood as witnesses to the restoration of truth. I turned to Maria, tears of gratitude and relief shining in my eyes. "Thank you," I whispered, "for everything." She smiled, her quiet strength unchanged. "You did it. You were never weak. You just needed to see it for yourself." That night, I walked through the house, no longer burdened by suspicion, fear, or betrayal. I had reclaimed my home, my fortune, and my dignity. But more importantly, I had learned that power comes not from wealth alone, but from clarity, patience, and the courage to confront deception with grace. And as I looked out over the gardens, the moonlight illuminating the path ahead, I knew one thing with certainty: the storm had passed, and I had emerged stronger, wiser, and unbreakable. The mask of betrayal had been torn away, and the truth, finally, was mine.